Now that we successfully created our Django project, so the next thing we want to do now, in this video, we're going to be creating a blog app and the models that we're going to be using for this app itself. So by the end of this video now, we have a working post model from our Django app. So in Django functionality now, we have to organize our project into apps, which means we are going to create one apps for our blog itself. So to create a Django application right here now, what we want to do is go ahead into the terminal and type Python manage.py. Okay, let me just clear this terminal first. Alright, clear. Then I want to go ahead and say Python manage.py. I want to go ahead and say start app blog. And right here now we can see we now have another application right here that says blog. So now this generates a blog folder with files, model views, and many more. And we can also add more to this as we want it to be. So now what you need to do is to register this app in your Django project, which you will go to your settings.py and you go ahead and register this app on your settings.py. I'm just going to come down here and say, and just comment something like here. Let me just say apps. Okay, these are my apps right here, and I'll go ahead and register blog. So right here now, Django will be able to access this application called blog. So this tells Django to include the blog app in our project itself in the settings.py. So the next thing we want to do now is to define a model. Our model is how we define data in the database. So let's create a post model in our application. That's our blog application. So we want to go to this blog model right here and create a post model, and we should already have by default importing from django.dp import models. So we are going to be creating these models using classes. So I'm going to go ahead and say class post and just go models.model right there, just as you define classes with Python. Then now you want to have the fields you want to have in these models. I'm going to go ahead and say title. So having a field here, title, which we want to have our post to have a title, right? So title equals to models dot. So what type of data type are we giving this? We have a child field, a slug field, a text field, positive small integers, and many more. But I'm going with a child field right here. And with child field, you have to give it an argument of max length, which means what's the maximum length of character that this field called title can have. This character field title can have. So we're going to have that right there. Then the next I want to have here is a content, right? A content field, which is going to contain the content of the blog post itself. And I want to call this a text field itself. Alright, so this is a text field, which means I can have like as many text as I want it to have. So right here, I'm not going to give it any parameter. Then I'm going to have two date and time posts, which is the time it was created and the time it was updated. So last updated time and the time the post was created. So I'm going to have a field called created at right here, and I'm going to call it models.date time field. And one thing I'm going to add to this is auto now add equals to true, which means it automatically set this time at the date you create this. You created this instance of this class. So when you created a post, this time will be updated by the time you created this post. That's what the auto now add is for. Then for the other one I'm going to have here, I'm just going to say updated at right here. And now I'm going to say this is equals to models.date time field. Alright, so I'm using date time field right here. So let me just bring this down. Okay, models.date time field. And now I just want to say auto now, not auto add. Just say this to true. And just to make this more understandable, I'm just going to add a comment here and say automatically set on creation. Then down here I'm going to say update on save. So we have it that way. Then here now I want to define how this post will appear in the admin panel. So that's using a function under this class called string. So what this is going to return is how I want this post to appear on the admin panel, or how I want this post to be represented when I'm calling an instance of this post. And I'm just going to go ahead and say self.title. I just want it to, like, when I call an instance of this post, it should return the title itself. So now, as I've said earlier, this title is a short text field that collects 200 max characters itself. Then the content is a long text field for the post body. Then we have the automatic timestamp, which is created at the time it was created automatically, then the updated at. Then this string down make the admin panel readable itself to us. So what we need to do now is, after you created a model, you need to go ahead and apply migration. So now we want to turn this model into a database table. Right here you can see we have our SQLite database here, which is what Django used by default, and I have a VS Code extension that allows me to see what is there. So now what you want to do is to run migrations, and what you're going to do is just like, okay, say Python manage.py make migrations. This is the first command of 2. So Python manage.py make migrations. So firstly, you can see in this block folder we have a folder called migrations, and we have a file in it. So in this migration is only this init file we have. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run this make migrations. So think of this, creating this migration file as a blueprint for the database itself. So we've created a blueprint for the database by running this migration right here, which is what we have right here, and which is what was created right here. This is the database here. This is a blueprint for the database itself, but the DB Lite has not. The database itself does not have any table yet. So to now make it have a table, now we need to run the migrate command itself. So this executes, let me just type it first. So this migrate command, what it's going to do for you is that the manage.py migrate. This executes and creates the actual database from the blueprint we have created earlier, which is the migration itself. So it's going to create the actual database now and be storing it in the database here. So here now we can see that it's applying many migration, and you can see that it's far more than what we created before, the model we created itself. So now we can see that there's something now in this model. Let me just close this and reopen it. So now you can see now there's something in this model here, and you can see we have a field and we have something like that. So I don't have any data stored there for now, so I'm not going to dwell anything right there, but we'll come back to this model in a short while. So now let's test if our model is interactive using Django, and how can we do that. So we can usually access our model using the terminal itself, and this is just like using Django interactive shell. And to do that, all you need to do is to say Python manage manage.py. I'm going to go ahead and say shell. So when you say Python manage.py, you'll be able to access these models. Now we have in the interactive shell of Django itself. So I want to import this model post from the blog models itself. So I'm going to go ahead and say blog.models import post. So now I have a post instance imported, now the class imported. So now I want to create a post, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and say post.objects.create. I'm just going to call this title. Now I'm going to give it the parameter I want to it, or I'll call this my first post. Then right here I want to give it the content, like hello coders. Okay, let me say hello coders, welcome to. So now we have this. Okay, let me just like it's being fancy, but okay, this is all right. So now this is me trying to create a post, and you can see now it's creating an object of this post itself, is returning the object of this post itself, which is with the title my first post, right? But how can I see this post using this shell again? So I'm just going to go ahead and say post.objects.haul. So this is me looking out into this post itself and trying to get everything I can have on it. Alright, so post.object.haul. Now you can see we have this query set that will return all the posts itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and say exit right here to leave the terminal shell itself. Alright, so that's a great job you have done right there. So what you have learned in this post so far, you've created your first app with Django. You've written your first model, which is your post model to store the data, and you forget to register your app with Django. So in the next episode, we are going to look at Django admin panel to manage our posts virtually. No code required. So don't just forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.